I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's news update for Friday, February the 22nd, 2013. Clashes between Palestinians and the IDF continue today across the West Bank, Hebron, and Jerusalem. As you may have seen on IBA News, following traditional Friday Muslim prayer at Jerusalem's Temple Mount, Palestinians began throwing stones and firecrackers at Israeli security forces, who ultimately dispersed them. No injuries were reported there. One protester was arrested. Riots also took place in Hebron and the West Bank, where Palestinians continue to demonstrate in support of several Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails who are on a long-term hunger strike. The Jerusalem Post reported that 2 Palestinians were injured in those clashes and said that according to an IDF source, the 2 were shot by IDF fire directed at their legs. And turning to Israeli politics and continuing coalition talks, Ynet reports that no breakthroughs were reached in talks held today between the negotiating teams of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud Beitenu party and Naftali Bennett's Habayit HaYehudi party. A joint statement released after the meeting said the sides had not reached an agreement and that the gaps were still wide. Representatives of the parties met this morning to discuss a proposal for a way to share the burden of army service in Israel, and also reportedly addressed Habayit HaYehudi's objections to the recent coalition agreement between Netanyahu and Tzipi Livni's Hatnu'ah party. Another meeting between Likud and Habayit HaYehudi is expected to take place next week. B'nai B'rith International is urging senators to carefully review Chuck Hagel's record before confirming him for the position of the next U.S. Secretary of Defense. The organization said they were concerned with many aspects of the former senator's responses to questions asked during his recent confirmation hearing, and citing that since then more questions have been raised about Hagel's views and comments he made on several issues, including recently reported remarks Hagel is said to have made at a 2007 speech where he is said to have referred to the U.S. State Department as, quote, an adjunct of the Israeli Foreign Minister's office. B'nai B'rith is calling for members of the Senate to thoroughly review Hagel's record before the confirmation vote. The American Jewish Committee issued a similar statement earlier this week. Meanwhile, 15 Republican senators have expressed their concerns about Hagel. The New York Times reports that the senators wrote a letter to President Obama Thursday urging him to withdraw Hagel's nomination. They too said Hagel's confirmation hearing raised serious doubts and concerns and said Hagel's, quote, erratic record on key national security issues, including Iran, were disconcerting. The Conference of Presidents of major American Jewish organizations praised outgoing Bulgarian Prime Minister Boyko Borisov for his courage in exposing Hezbollah as the terror group behind the Borgas bombing last summer that killed 5 Israelis and their Bulgarian bus driver. Conference Chairman and Executive Vice Chairman Richard Stone and Malcolm Hoenlein, respectively, said Prime Minister Borisov and his government did not take the easy way, but stood up for principle and responsibility. Further saying other terrorist actions by Hezbollah were ignored or covered up by other governments, largely for fear of retribution. A myth was created, they said, by some European countries that there are 2 Hezbollahs, one a political organization and the other a military terrorist organization. In fact, these are 2 sides of the same coin. The Jewish Week reports that the National Jewish Committee on Scouting, or NJCS, voted in favor of ending the Boy Scouts of America's ban on gay scouts and scout leaders. The vote was taken by regional chairs of the organization. A.J. Kramer, chairman of the NJCS, said the leadership was, quote, overwhelmingly in favor of providing for inclusion, and that he would suspect that individual members of the committee are going to be actively engaged in changing the position of the Boy Scouts of America, who earlier this month said they would reconsider their ban on gays and then said they were postponing their decision until later this spring. According to Rabbi Peter Hyman, the NJCS national chaplain, the vote was 27 in favor of ending the ban, 1 to keep it, and 1 abstention. He said it wasn't an issue about gays, but of leadership and national standards. further saying, quote, "Sexual orientation doesn't tell you anything about a person's character or about a person's commitment to God and allegiance to country. It tells us nothing about a person's bravery or loyalty and dedication to others," unquote. And finally, the Jewish holiday of Purim begins at sundown tomorrow night with the reading of the Megillah, which recounts how Queen Esther and Mordecai saved the Jews from the evil Haman in ancient Shushan. Jews across the world will be dressing up in costume, using groggers to drown out Haman's name, and sharing gifts of food with friends and family, and giving to the poor. From all of us at Shalom TV, we wish you a very happy Purim. And that's Shalom TV's news update for Friday, February the 22nd, 2013. I'm Teisha Bader. Shabbat Shalom.